Yeah. 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 So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of complice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge, they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pam Esquire, also known as Your Law Intellect. If you are new here, welcome. If you've been here rocking with your girl for a while, thank you so much for the support and welcome back. Victor Vale started out and said, another lawsuit and another one, and another one. Yes, there is a lawsuit. Now, this lawsuit is from Don Richards, who was in the group Danity Kane. And I think she also branched off when Diddy, in Diddy fashion, dismantled Danity Kane, and it was like dirty money, something like that. Okay. And so we know Aubrey O'Day, which was the white young lady that was in one of the white young ladies that was in Danity Kane. We know that she kind of been talking because she got kicked out of Danity Kane. But Don Richards now is saying what her experience was working with Diddy. Now, if you guys don't remember who Danity Kane is, there was a show called Making the Band. Okay. In Making the Band, they would get all these people that would audition, and I believe the lawsuit, I haven't read it, but I believe the lawsuit probably spells out where Danity Kane, how it was developed. But for those that don't know, because you know I got some young people on here, there was one of the first reality shows out there was called Making the Band. So all of these people with talent would come and they would audition in front of Diddy, and they were going through the process, and at the end he was going to put together a band. Now on the first, I think it was the first season, there was a group, and it was Baps, and like it was a group of rappers, and a singer, Sarah, was from Detroit. And from that I was like, yeah, I can't do Diddy will punch me in my mouth, because what he's not gonna do is have me walking to go get no cheesecake. Like, he was literally having them do things showing that power dynamic and making it like, well, how bad do you want it? If you want it this bad, then you willing to do whatever. Then you never know, like, what Diddy is thinking. Diddy is always like this. They out there auditioning, Diddy's like, I mean, they singing their heart out. How did you? I mean, they singing their hearts out, and Diddy's like, this is how he was almost through the whole audition. But nonetheless, right, take that, take that. But nonetheless, there were people that wanted to be a singer so bad, or they wanted a deal so bad, that they was dealing with Diddy and his shenanigans. And Don was one of them. So the thing about Don, like I said, was I believe Aubrey got kicked off out of Danity Kane. He was like, we don't need your services anymore. So Don was one of the ones that still was connected to Diddy. So I think in this lawsuit, we'll see what happened even after Danity Kane, when the second group was there, was with him. And she still had communication with them, because I was looking on Facebook and I saw like a video where she was actually, let me see. Let me pull you up, Don. I'm trying to give some context because might have some people that ain't as old as me that don't remember. So this is Don, and just on March 4th of 2020, she says she just got off the phone with Diddy and she was joining making a band as a judge. So she was still in communication with them as little as like 4 years ago, and I guess they were all right.
Hey everybody, it's Dawn here, and I'm excited to announce that I just got off the phone with Puff, and he has asked me to help him find some singers. So yes, I am going to be a part of making the band. I'm going to be in Houston, Texas, Saturday at the Wortham Theater at 9 a.m. It starts at 9 a.m., but you guys got to get there earlier. I'm super, super excited to be a part of this. You know, I got my start on making the band, and I've been able to build a brand from this, and I'm super excited to represent for the indie kids, to be able to be a part of this and help you guys manifest your dreams, your vision, and what success means to you. This is important, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. Um, hey, Puff, let's do this for another time, right? Let's do it, making the band 2020. Rock with me.
So this is my problem with this. And before we get into this lawsuit, my problem with this is if you had such a horrible experience with Diddy, why indeed would you advertise for other people to go through this same traumatic experience? That's just my take. You know what I'm saying? That's just what I'm saying is that that's when I seen that, I'm like, this was just 2020. So I'm sure she's going to take us back to all of the issues, but yet it appears that she still was helping to try to recruit people as early as 2020 to do this. This is just how I think. You know what I'm saying? This is just how I automatically think on both sides. So that, whatever. So if you guys don't remember who Danity Kane, I know one of the songs was Showstopper, Showstopper. I'm not playing it because Diddy is being sued by everybody. You know what I'm saying? So I am not going to pull up no bad boy video because I am pretty sure he got some interns going all through these here internet trying to figure out who is using any of bad boy stuff so he can do a little copyright infringement or something because he need all the money he can get. But Diddy, I'm smarter than that. You ain't getting not a dollar from your girl. So I'm just gonna sing the little snippet that I know so people could kind of, know what Danity Kane did or whatever. Because Diddy was known for getting y'all one good album. He did that with Day 26. He get you one good album. Then you like, what happened? What happened to Day 26? What happened to Danity Kane? I wonder what they doing. You just randomly see a song come across your timeline and you start looking them up on Instagram because you're like, what happened to them? That's kind of what Diddy did. Diddy, you're not getting no money from me because, see, Diddy had a rough week. I know you guys saw Diddy lost a lawsuit by default to this cat right here, okay? This man is Derek Smith. He filed a lawsuit alleging a lot of the actual type allegations against Diddy. He even made an allegation that Diddy came to the Michigan Department of Corrections and said, hey, if you give me this certain amount of money, if you take this certain amount of money, I'm sorry, then I'll drop the allegation. He was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And he actually was able to finagle and get a injunction because he found out through the prison walls that Diddy was going to sell his house. So he actually successfully got an injunction. Now he got that first. Whether Diddy was served, I don't know, but there is an injunction preventing him from selling his assets. Then he went on ahead and got a default because he proved to the court, he submitted to the court, according to the judge, a proof of service that Diddy was served and that nobody responded. Now, the legitimacy of this, I don't know. Diddy's team is saying this is fraud to the court. Dude is lying. He is litigious. Now, he has been filing lawsuits all over the place, but this one seemed to stick. But it was $100 million. But look at what this man is in here for, okay? Look what he in here for. He in there doing 17 to 35 years and went in 2019 for CSC. Okay. Look at all these counts. 14 counts. All right. And then it started in 1997, where he got 6 years. 1998, which is very interesting because I believe in 97 is when he's alleging this stuff happened with Diddy. Very ironic, right? But that's when he's alleging. Nonetheless, some was able to finagle these good courts, and he got that $100 million. Now, what I will say though is if the statute of limitation has not expired, because it looks like he wasn't sentenced till 2019 for offenses that happened back in 97, which again is around the same time he's alleging this stuff happened with Diddy. This is what he's being accused of, right? What he's accusing Diddy of. So if there are any alleged victims out here, you better go ahead, and if there's no statute of limitation problems, you better file against this fool, okay? And get this money like he tried to do with Diddy. But nonetheless, I do believe Diddy is going to end up getting this dismissed. In my opinion, I think there's going to be something to set this aside. I think they're going to do a motion to set this judgment aside, and I think the judge is going to end up granting it. And Diddy claims he don't even know this guy. We don't know how true it is. We don't know. Diddy might know him, may not know him, whatever. But I'm just saying. T. Gabriel said whether Diddy did all these things, he is definitely done. Well, that's allegedly, and that's, T. Gabriel that said that. Florida T-Bird said, I want to see the prison camera showing me and you both. Because what I can say as an attorney, I visit the prisons a lot because you guys know what I do. And as an attorney, I have to sign in the book and I have to show my ID and my bar card. When I go in the back, you do keep your ID on you. I want to say, I don't remember people doing a sign-in book just as a regular visitor, but you do have to have your ID and you have to be on their visitors list in order to see somebody. You do have to be on their list. So perhaps it was, so I don't see how Diddy could come in and see you unless he's on the visitors list. So did you put Sean on your visitors list? Did you put him on your visitors list? Because he ain't a lawyer. Lawyers and investigators could come in and set up visits. But, and you ain't got to be on their list for that because it's a professional visit. But I don't understand, or like maybe a preacher, like a clergy or something. But you have to be on the visitors list in order to visit people in the Michigan Department of Corrections. But I don't know. Listen, I don't know, but what I do know is I need you guys to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And look at the scroll. I have been trying to be on Instagram and TikTok this week. So if you guys are TikTokers or Instagrammers, because I do want to go live on Instagram because that's easy to just click the button and go. Like if I'm out and I'm doing some, outside the courthouse or something, want to do something very quickly, I want to be able to do so. And I want to make sure that you guys are all over there. So if you have not done so, please follow me at pam.esq. And I appreciate all of the new followers that I've gotten overnight. I appreciate that. And let's get into it. Let's get into this here lawsuit. Sonia, I am so glad that you made the live. The elite diva said, I believe those officers could have bribed just like Diddy paid that hotel for Cassie footage. Well, if he paid that hotel for Cassie footage, then he didn't do it right because they didn't give him the original and they didn't destroy anything because somebody had it. Because honestly, if Diddy had it, I don't understand why he didn't destroy it himself. Duh. Like, why would you keep it around knowing somebody could come in your house and steal it? You can get raided. Like, what happened? Why would you keep that? That doesn't make sense to me. Diamond Pearl Jim, thank you so much for the super chat. You said someone needs to do a show where the making of band contestants tell their stories and where they landed after leaving Diddy. Diamond Pearl Jim, why don't you help me with that? I would love to do something like that. Let's collaborate here. That's a very good idea, and I'll give you all the credit. But I said I want to see people too that may have had issues with Diddy and actually turned them down and was like, listen, bruh, forget it. You can take your deal and shove it. That's what I want to see too. I want to see people that was like, no, Diddy was asking me to do, and I was like, hell no. So yeah. Ray Bishop says surviving the ban. See what I'm saying? Let me copyright that real quick. Let me get off of here. Surviving the ban. That's it right there, Ray. Get on your job, Ray. Get these people from the band that was in I seen like Babs did an interview. Rob from Day 26 is here in Detroit. He's a Detroiter. I know what is her name? I said it. Sarah. She is from here, and Sarah, she was on the first season. Sarah was on, it's a show that Nikki Gilbert produced called From the Bottom Up. And it had like people that had been to prison, or because remember, Sarah was one where I guess her and her husband had some issues and she ended up doing some time, I believe, or went to jail or something. So on this show called The Bottom Up, they had people that were starting, like they went to jail or whatever, and they were starting their life over again. And Sarah was on that show along with, if you guys know, our former mayor in Detroit, Kwame Kilpatrick, his mistress, that, or the lady he was messing with, Christine Beatty, she was on there as well. So yeah. Courtney said, I've seen a video with that title on YouTube. Okay. She's like, girl, don't do that. You're gonna have a copyright problem. Thank you. Kevin Durant said they all signed an NDA. They can't. Well, if you commit a crime, it can take it outside of that NDA. But let's see what this lawsuit has to say, because we can just chit chat about this, all day. And this is a 30-page lawsuit. So we'll be here for a little minute here. So Don sued everybody, okay? And she has Lisa Bloom. For those of you who don't know who she is, y'all know who she is, doing all those press conferences. She represents women that allege that they had some type of sexual assault, that perpetrated upon them by males. That's her main niche. I saw Gloria Allright when I was in California for the Tory trial. But yeah, Lisa Bloom is on here, and I believe that's her daughter. But it has Don Richards is suing Sean Combs, Harve, Pierre, Remote Productions, Inc., New Remote Productions, Inc., the Nordlinger Group, LLC, November 15th, LLC, Daddy's House Recording Studio, Bad Boy Entertainment, LLC, Bad Boy Records, LLC, Bad Boy Entertainment Holding, Inc., Bad Boy Productions Holding, Inc., Bad Boy Brooks Holding, Inc., the Sean Combs Music, Inc., Sean Combs Capital, LLC, Combs Enterprises, LLC, Universal Music Group, NV, Interscope, Geffen A&M Records, Diageo America Supply, Inc., DBA Ciroc Distilling Company, DBA Ciroc Canning Company, Combs Wines and Spirits, LLC, Janice Combs Publishing, Inc., Janice Combs Publishing Holding, Inc., Sony Songs, Sony Music Publishing, LLC, Love Records, Inc., Epic Records, Doe Corporations 1 through 10, and Doe Defendants 11 through 20. What does that mean, Pam? She's suing everybody, and some of you, at least one of y'all or some of y'all got some money, okay? She is suing everybody. So let's go to the preliminary statement. This is kind of your summary and your introduction here in this lawsuit. Don Angelique Richard, known professionally as Don Richard, is an American musician, singer, songwriter, and performer. She gained widespread recognition as a member of the group Danity Kane, Showstopper, formed by defendant Sean Combs, and later transitioned into a key member of Mr. Combs' band Diddy, Dirty Money. Defendant Sean Combs, a once celebrated hip-hop mogul, popularly known by his stage name Puff Daddy, Puffy, P. Diddy, Diddy, or Love, depending on the year. You know Diddy by different names depending on what era you were born in. He skyrocketed to fame in the late 1990s and became a powerful and enduring figure in the music and entertainment industry. In 98, Mr. Combs explained the origin of his stage name in a USA Today interview. His nickname was Puff because he had a temper. Oh my gosh. And was known as Huff and Puff when he was angry. I didn't know that. Did y'all know that? So he got the name Puffy, according to him, is because he got anger problems. Allegedly. Everything in this document is alleged, okay? Because even though Puffy, P. Diddy is losing a whole lot of money right now, he still got some. So I don't need him coming for me. Over the decades following his rise to fame, Mr. Combs' star-studded, larger-than-life persona overshadowed his vicious temper and pervasive acts of violence directed towards those in their inner circle, specifically women. Mr. Combs' namesake, temper, frequently manifested in physical violence. Mr. Combs regularly hurled objects in its fits of rage, often throwing items such as mobile phones, laptops, food, and studio equipment across the room or at people. Now, Puff. If Puff threw something at me, that's how I would be like this. I'll be looking like this. Let's say he threw something at me. Me and Puff would be in there scrapping, okay? Especially in the 90s where I just didn't have I had no chill. I didn't have any chill in the 90s. So I already know I would have been, y'all be talking about how I do my reenactments. I'd have been like this. They would have had a picture like this of me back in the 90s because he wouldn't have been throwing nothing at me. I'm like, I would have looked around. I would have found the hardest thing that I could find. The hardest thing. After I knocked him in his eye a couple of times, I'd have went and got something really, really, really hard, and I'd have just threw it. I don't care if it was a PlayStation. I don't care what it was. You would have got it upside your head. But I digress. Let's go on. My sister said I had no chill. Listen here, God has saved me, and I am way better. I am way better now. I'm so much calmer. But back in the 90s, I definitely would have fought you. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that I never even tried to do anything related to Puff. Because if this is how he was acting, because this is what's being alleged, I wouldn't have made it. So, sometimes you gotta thank God for his grace and mercy. I just thank him for his grace and his mercy. Whew, okay, let's go on. You too, LLE, you feeling me? You feeling me, sis? That's my sister with the 6 Sigma, like super. That's my real sister. This is my little sister that's like 4 years younger than me. We are from the east side of Detroit. I'm just saying, we not what we used to be. That's all I'm gonna say. So let's go on. I can't believe he was throwing stuff at people. Okay. On numerous occasions, Miss Richard witnessed Mr. Combs brutally beat his girlfriend, Miss Cassandra Cassie Ventura. His persistent abuse included choking and strangling Miss Ventura, striking her with his hands and with objects, slapping her, punching her, and throwing items at her, including a scalding hot pan. Yeah, I mean, how would I have done my mugshot? It would have been like, I probably would have smiled. I'd have been like, hold on, officer. Let me fix this. It would have been looking like glamour shots. Remember glamour shots back in the day? That's how my mugshot would have been looking. Because, honey, ain't no way. I'm just, I might not have won, okay? I may not have won. I'm not no person that think I could beat everybody back then. I may not have won, but he would have knew I was there, okay? He would have knew that I was present. That he would have known. He would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't want to do that no more. Now, I ain't saying I would have won because he's still a man. I'm not naive. But baby, he would have knew I was there. It would have been something. It would have been a scratch under the eye. He would have had some remembrance of me if this were me. That's all I'm saying. Let's go on. On many occasions, Miss Richard tried to intervene, offering Miss Ventura support and encouragement to leave Mr. Combs. Each time Mr. Combs learned of her efforts to help Miss Ventura, and he became enraged, threatening Miss Richards' life with statements such as, quote, "You want to die today? You want to die today? I'll make a nigga go missing. I end people." All of this is alleged, but this is what they're saying. Compounding Mr. Combs' violent acts and death threats, he flagrantly exploited Miss Richards' musical talent as a singer and writer while withholding her rightful earnings, stealing her copyrighted works, and subjecting her to years of inhumane working conditions, which included groping, assault, and false imprisonment, among other violations. For nearly a decade, Mr. Combs manipulated Miss Richard with mantras that submission to his depraved demands was necessary for career advancement, instilling in her the belief that such abuse and exploitation were required for female artists to succeed in the music industry. It was not until Miss Ventura's bravery in coming forward that Miss Richard realized her own personal suffering was tied to the many years of abuse by Mr. Combs that had become normalized for her. As more women courageously come forward, plaintiff has been empowered by this collective strength and now adds her voice to the growing chorus of victims bravely sharing their harrowing stories. Together, they seek justice and stand in solidarity as the latest victims of the hashtag Me Too movement in the music industry. LB said he blackballed her. She is too talented to be where she is now. Y'all hit the like button on the way in. Let's go on. Hey, talk about all the parties. And so we know who the parties are that are in this lawsuit because we just went over every name. So we're not going to go through all of that and who they are and how they're employed. We all know if you're an intellect, the jurisdiction and venue, you have to allege that this is the proper court to put this in. You cannot just go and say, you know what, today I think I want to file a case in Arizona, and there's no attachment to Arizona. So you have to show jurisdiction and venue, which is why this is an appropriate venue for this court to be in. Okay. And that it's the proper jurisdiction. And the reason why they say that this venue, this court is the proper court is because a substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to this action occurred in this district, and defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy conduct substantial business and or are domiciled in this district. So they live in that district. So those are the reason why they feel like this court is the proper court. But let's get into these factual allegations again. These are all alleged. And so we're just saying this is what she alleges occurred with her interaction with all of these people in this caption. The first factual allegation says Miss Richards is selected to be in Mr. Combs' all female music group Danity Kane after competing on MTV's Making the Band. So we're going back to Making the Band. In or around 2004, Miss Richard was selected to participate in season 3 of MTV Network's reality television show Making the Band. The show centered around the formation and development of a new musical group under the mentorship of Mr. Combs. The contestants would compete and be chosen by Mr. Combs to form a band, which would go on to create albums and perform. For aspiring artists like Miss Richards, making the band represented a concrete path to a career in the entertainment industry. Let's read the footnote right here. It said Miss Richards appeared in season 3 and 4 of Making the Band, which first aired in 2005. Let's read this here. Footnote, it has Making the Band is a reality television series that premiered on MTV in 2000. The show has had several iterations, each featuring a different musical group. The stars of season 3 and 4 were Aubrey O'Day, Juanita D. Woods, Woodjet, Shannon Becks, Andrea Fimbers, and Miss Richard. And I'm sure I butchered all of your names. And for that, ladies, I apologize. Known as the all-female group Danity Kane. Season 5 of Making the Band featured Diddy, Dirty Money, a trio consisting of Mr. Combs, Kalina Harper, and Miss Richards. Oh, I didn't know Dirty Money came from Making the Band season 5. I stopped watching it, I think, after Danity Kane, day 26. Out of thousands of contestants, Miss Richard, along with approximately 12 other women, were selected to participate in season 3 of Making the Band. 5 women, including Miss Richards, were ultimately chosen to be in the group Danity Kane, which was named by Miss Richards. Prior to and including the first Danity Kane album, Making the Band was filmed entirely at Diddy's house recording studio. The Making the Band content that focused on Danity Kane's work on his second album, Welcome to the Dial House, was filmed at Daddy's house at Mr. Combs' Miami residence. Other Making the Band episodes included Los Angeles as a third filming location. Upon information and belief, to create Making the Band, camera crews filmed 24 hours a day, gathering months' worth of footage to condense into mere hours of entertainment for viewers. Danity Kane released its self-titled debut album in 2006 and its second album, Welcome to the Dial House, in March of 2008. Danity Kane's first album sold over 4 million copies. Damages to Miss Richard for unpaid salaries are estimated at $1 million. Danity Kane's second album, Welcome to the Dial House, sold over 2 million copies. Damages to Miss Richard for unpaid salaries and royalties are estimated at $500,000. Damages on unpaid wages for touring on over 100 dates for Miss Richard with Danity Kane are estimated at $1,800,000. So he owed you all this money, and then in 2020, you gonna come on Making the Band and help him find more people? He could not. Mr. Combs fired bandmate Aubrey O'Day and Juanita D. Woods, Woodjet, from Danity Kane on live television at the height of its fame in 2008. I remember that, which resulted in Danity Kane being disbanded in 2009. Second, Miss Richards first encounters Mr. Combs' aggressive, intimidating behavior and animus towards women. During the audition and on set of Making the Band, Mr. Combs projected an aura of superiority, wealth, and power. Mr. Combs regularly wore sunglasses. Didn't I tell y'all? He wore sunglasses and avoided looking the female contestants in the eyes, contributing to an atmosphere of uncertainty and intimidation. During auditions, Mr. Combs spoke to the female contestants in a hostile, condescending manner, making disparaging gender-based remarks such as calling them fat, ugly, itches, and O's. I'd have been like, your mama fat. See, I'm telling you, back in that time, I thank God I do. He'd have been like, you fat. I've been like, you talking about your woman? Or you talking about your mama? Because you ain't talking about me. Miss Richard felt threatened and intimidated by Mr. Combs' blatant disdain for the young women like herself who were excited for the opportunity to be on his show. Once the band was made, Mr. Combs' contempt for women was readily apparent as he continued to display aggressive and hostile behavior towards Miss Richard and her all-female Danity Kane bandmates. Mr. Combs regularly referred to the 5 women as itches and hoes, and denigrated their physical appearances. By way of example, Mr. Combs stated that Miss Richard was too skinny and needed to do something about her face. Listen, Puff, I don't know what I need to do about my face, but tell me, I'm going to show you what yours is about to look like. That's what type of foolishness? I can't. I just can't. I couldn't have been no artist back then. If this is what they had to endure, years of PTSD, and now you're going to need therapy because this man is allegedly talking to you like trash. That's not going to work. I'm telling you, he would have beat me up. That's just the bottom line. He would have beat me up. Then he would have had to deal with my daddy. You know, my daddy was younger back then. He would have to deal with my older brother. It'd have been a whole problem. See what I'm saying? So I'm glad I never thought that I was like good enough to sing or any rap or any of that stuff. I just sung in the choir. All right. I sang for the Lord. That was it. And I am so glad that I stuck to that, because if I would have really thought that I could be an artist and I had to go and they said, you have to perform in front of Puff, and he did any of this stuff, you guys, it would never be a Law Intellects. You guys would have never met me, because I can guarantee you somebody probably in my family will be filing a lawsuit now trying to figure out what happened to me from back then. Like, the last thing we knew, she went for an audition with Puff. That's the last thing we knew. And then when all of this stuff come out, then they'll probably reopen the case. Because I promise you, we would have been in there scrapping. This is not going to work for me. On one occasion, in or about 2005, during the first season of Making the Band 3, Miss Richard observed Mr. Combs' ex-partner and the mother of 3 of his children, Kim Porter, leaving Mr. Combs' recording studio in tears with visible facial injuries, including a lacerated lip. Realizing that Mr. Combs was capable of committing acts of violence against women caused by Miss Richard, to feel deep apprehension and fear that Mr. Combs could one day physically harm her. Mr. Richard was present when Mr. Combs was introduced to Cassie Ventura for the first time in or about 06. The moment Mr. Combs first saw Miss Ventura, his demeanor noticeably shifted. Mr. Combs positioned himself directly in front of Miss Ventura's seat, invading her personal space, and fixated on her with an intense, unyielding stare, isolating her from the other people in the room, including Miss Ventura's then boyfriend, music producer Ryan Leslie. And y'all know how Diddy is, like how he was when they had him being what was that show? Because it was the guy from here. What is his name that was on Grown and Gospel? Elijah, is that his name? I think it's Elijah. He was on one of those shows on TV where you do your talents. I don't know if it's America Got Talent or one of them, and they did the stare down like this, and he stared at him like this because he's from Detroit. He was like, and that went viral, the whole stare down. That's what it sounds like happened here. They had the stare down. 504 said, my dad is so damn nice. He befriends people. You know what? C. Bree said, there's something with some of our people. We settle for anything. I remember as a child, the pastor throwing hardcover hymn books at the congregation. Church is a whole another conversation. I was just talking to somebody about how, in my opinion, church has almost conditioned you to be mistreated. But that can be a whole nother live. Maybe I'll do it in the membership. But I agree with that. It's almost like, because a lot of Black people, we went to church for solace, and that came from slavery days, and it just continued, and it became a refuge. And so it also became, a lot of pastors have used it as control as well. But that's another thing. You got to forgive everybody in 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm still mad. Like, what you talking about, forgive everybody in 5 minutes? TDWM said, let's talk about church and business. There's some good churches out there too. But yeah, church does, a lot of churches, at least back in, a lot of black churches have conditioned you to almost accept things that you shouldn't be accepting. But again, that's another story. Coincidentally, this first meeting between Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura was the first time that Miss Richards was in Mr. Combs' presence without a camera crew filming. Observing Mr. Combs behave in such an intimidating, predatory manner the first time that they were off camera made Miss Richards feel deeply apprehensive and afraid of him. Subsequently, Miss Ventura ended her relationship with Mr. Leslie and began dating Mr. Combs, who would become violent and abusive towards her. This section is about Danity Kane's sexual harassment, inhumane treatment, and denial of basic needs by Mr. Combs. For the majority of Mr. Richards' tenure for the majority of Miss Richards' tenure as a member of Danity Kane and Diddy Dirty Money, Mr. Combs required her to remain at his various residences and studios in New York, Los Angeles, Florida, and New Jersey for activities such as recording, rehearsing, dressing, preparing costumes, and exercising. Throughout the production of Making the Band 3 and 4, Mr. Combs deprived Miss Richard and her Danity Kane bandmates of basic needs such as adequate food and sleep. When Miss Richards or her Danity Kane bandmates requested meals or rest, Mr. Combs refused and chastised them with derogatory comments like, "You itches don't want this," or "Y'all are not hungry enough, and I'm paying you itches to work." Now, Diddy. I'm going to say again, this is all alleged. But I would have told you what you could do with your money. I'm telling y'all, I wouldn't have made it. I would not have made it. I know I would not. My attitude sucked back then. I would not have. You called me what? I would like, come again? What you say? What you say? I'm getting mad like it's me. I gotta talk to myself, girl. It is not you. This happened a long time ago. This was what Miss Richards is alleging. Calm yourself down. I gotta talk to myself, cause honey, you itches don't want this. Y'all not hungry enough. I'm paying you, huh? This demeaning behavior gradually undermined Miss Richards' confidence and contributed significantly to her growing feelings of insecurity and fear of reprisal from Mr. Combs. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs will regularly be awake for prolonged periods of time because he was high on drugs. During these periods, Mr. Combs demanded continuous access to Miss Richard and her Danity Kane bandmates, often forcing them to record and rehearse for stretches of 36 to 48 hours without breaks. Forced to choose between eating and sleeping, Miss Richard lost a significant amount of weight, weighing approximately 100 pounds at a height of 5'4". Miss Richards began normalizing these extreme conditions and perceived from a standard requirement of her participation in Danity Kane. I really need a psychologist to come on here because I want to really understand this. I really, really do. I need somebody. Is anybody in chat a psychologist? 504 said, never would have made it. Never could have made it without you. That would have been me. I would have lost it all. I'd have lost it for real. I'd have lost it because yeah, I need a psychologist to help me out because I can't whoa. I knew I couldn't make it. I didn't know any of this stuff, but when he had them walk for that darn cheesecake, I just could not. I was like, and y'all walking? The only place I'd have been walking was to that cab to go hit that plane to go back home. That's where I would have been. No. Oh my God. Patty said, why did they stay? They wanted the career. I guess he told them this is what everybody goes through. That's what he's saying. And perhaps this is something that Puffy seen himself. Remember, he was in first, he started out promoting parties, then he became an A&R, and I believe he worked for free. So he probably was around this power dynamic and structure, and he's done it. Once he got in that position, things that were done to him, maybe he did to other people. I'm just speculating. Because we did hear a lot of people in high powerful positions like Weinstein, who was big in the acting, if you wanted an acting career. So there are people in these different areas of entertainment that maybe, because you do look at what they said in the beginning. With making the band, there were hundreds of people or thousands of people that were trying to get this spot. So what are you willing to do in order to get this spot? I just ain't got it in me. I just would not. He would have told me, you don't really want this. I'd have been like, you know what? You right. Is there a way you can call a taxi? Can I call my mama? Can I call my sister? Because if I call my brothers and tell them what you said, then I don't know if this house still gonna be here. Pat. If he would have, you know what? You right. You are absolutely right. I ain't cut for this. But there are some people that wanted this so bad. They dream, I guess, on they look on television, and they got Star Search back in the day, and everybody, we had videos. Remember, that was our entertainment. You watch MTV videos, or you pay for the videos on your cable, and you can watch all of these different celebrities, and it looks like their life is just lavish, and they pulling up in these $500,000 cars and these big mansions, and you want this. So you're willing to do whatever it takes to want this. This is why the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. Because you do have people that for money, they will do anything. And then you have people for money and fame. They know how you are, and because they are the one that holds that, they will exert that power against other people. I just Butterfly said, yes, they want to be famous so bad they will do anything to take it even more. I mean, that's what it's looking like to me. Thank you so much, Patrina, for the super sticker. I thank you so much. You didn't have to do it, but I'm so glad that you did. Lori Ann Gibson next. I know she has stories. Yeah, because they got into it. And I thought she sued him at one point. They must have came to an agreement. So you also got to look at the people back in the day that were bringing lawsuits and then they just didn't. I'm sure they'll be on somebody's witness list. Thank you, Empath, for the super chat. I appreciate that. So let's go on. Mr. Combs regularly sent his associates to wake Miss Richard and her Danity Kane bandmates in the overnight hours so he could watch them rehearse. The regularity of these disturbances led Miss Richards to adapt by sleeping in a sitting position, fully dressed with makeup on, heightening her anxiety over time. This abnormal sleeping arrangement came to feel routine, further normalizing Mr. Combs' invasive demands. In addition to exhausting rehearsals, Mr. Combs required Miss Richard and her bandmates to participate in intense workouts with a personal trainer. On one occasion, while running on the beach, Miss Richard became so dehydrated that she vomited. Instead of offering medical assistance, MTV Network's camera crew filmed the incident, contributing to her acceptance of such treatment as part of her professional life. The unrelenting and rigorous schedule of rehearsals, performance, and near constant filming that Mr. Combs imposed caused Miss Richards to experience extreme weight loss, dehydration, fatigue, and painful rashes from the microphone packs she was required to wear on her back. These conditions intensified Miss Richards' feelings of powerlessness as she increasingly viewed them as part of her professional reality and feared the consequences of any resistance. Hold on. In a further assertion of power and dominance, Mr. Combs insisted on holding meetings while dressed only in his underwear. On one occasion in 2008 at his Miami residence, Mr. Combs emailed Miss Richards directing her to meet him in the living room. When she arrived, he was wearing only his underwear. Sean Johns. Miss Richard asked Mr. Combs to put clothes on, but he refused, stating, "This is my ucking house." Mr. Combs then conducted a meeting lasting approximately an hour while dressed in his underwear, causing Miss Richard to feel violated and embarrassed and amplifying her feelings of powerlessness. Following the official Danity Kane breakup in early 2009, effectuated by Mr. Combs, Miss Richards experienced significant financial hardship. With no prospective opportunities for employment within the entertainment field, Miss Richards spent several months traveling from Baltimore to Daddy's house recording studio in New York without pay or allocated budget. Mr. Combs promised that Miss Richards' compositions would result in payment of license fees and royalties pursuant to her contract with Bad Boy Records. However, no such compensation was ever reported or paid to Miss Richards. Damages relative to these continuing copyright infringements will be proved at trial. So I guess my question is, why wasn't there a lawsuit against Bad Boy Records for copyright infringement, unpaid royalties, unpaid compensation, travel, whatever it was during this time that she was not getting paid? Like, why wasn't that lawsuit filed back then when he breached that contract? Because she did mention in here, it said pursuant to her contract with Bad Boy Records. So I wonder why she did not sue them. Let's go to Diddy Dirty Money. Miss Richards experienced Mr. Combs' gender-based physical violence, criminal acts, sexual assault, and threats and intimidation. By approximately the fall of 2009, many of Miss Richards' compositions have been recorded by other Bad Boy Records artists. Due to the success of her composition, Miss Richards was invited to meet with musical artist Kalana Harper, Miss Harper, and shortly thereafter, Mr. Combs, Miss Richard, and Miss Harper formed a new group, Diddy Dirty Money. Initial recording for Diddy Dirty Money's album Last Train to Paris took place in Mr. Combs' home in LA. On the first day of the recording, Miss Richard and Miss Harper arrived at Mr. Combs' home and waited in the kitchen when Mr. Combs' girlfriend, Miss Ventura, was frying eggs for him. Miss Richard observed Mr. Combs come down the stairs looking high on drugs, enter the kitchen, approach Miss Ventura, and scream, "I've been asking you for ish. I can't stand you, itch. You never do it right." Miss Combs pushed Miss Ventura against the wall and choked her, then picked up the scalding hot pan of eggs and threw it at her, causing her to fall to the ground in a fetal position. Cursing and screaming, Mr. Combs dragged Miss Ventura up the stairs. I can see the headlines now. Girlfriend of Sean Combs, Pam Esquire, brutally stabbed and threw hot water and hot grits on music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Stay tuned for further updates. I could totally see the headlines in my head. That just would not, I can't do it. I can't do it. Y'all hit that like button. This is triggering. I should have put the trigger. I'm getting triggered. I should have put the trigger sign on. Where's my trigger? Where's my trigger warning? Whew, Jesus. This is very evil. This is so evil. My sister said, "You missed your calling. You should have been on Living Color." Felicia says, so she witnessed her being abused and did nothing. That's what it looks like. I've been triggered because I literally can see how this would have ended. And this wasn't even me. Like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know any of these people, but I'm just saying, like, whew, I have to tell y'all about my story one day. It's very brief. My story is very brief, but I do have a story. Whoa. Frozen in shock and terror, Miss Richard heard glass shattering, crashing, and banging noises as Mr. Combs dragged Miss Ventura up the stairs. Miss Richard wanted to intervene and help Miss Ventura, but Miss Harper adamantly refused to interfere in Mr. Combs' relationship and physically led Miss Richard out of the residence. Terrified and shaken, Miss Richard returned to her hotel where she was unable to sleep due to worrying about Miss Ventura and her own safety. You ain't called the police? No, nothing. This is, yeah, I need a psychologist to help me understand this because I don't understand. Now what I will say is this. Now I've been in situations where I've had friends. Well, I had a friend who was being abused, and she would call me, and I was like, "Girl, what? This how?" And I'm not joking. I was like, "This." I pulled up. I had my Diddy glasses on. It was dark because I wasn't trying to get caught, but I was like, "What's it? Where his car at? Huh? Where's his car?" And she was crying, and I was like, trying to put the glass, whatever he had gave her a black eye. I'm trying to put ice on her eye and all of that stuff. And then a week later, she in the kitchen cooking for him. I was like, "Girl, I almost went to jail for you. I won't do that no more." So you call me when you done. Okay. When you done, then you give your girl a call. Otherwise, I'm just gonna pray for you and be there for you. So I know sometimes people don't want to intervene because you don't know the dynamics of the relationship. Some women, you don't know if this is a recurring thing, So I could, I can see that. Courtney said, "That's why I had to be very cautious and smart about offering help to those in abusive marriages and abusive couples. Person getting abused will get right back with them. They will. And you'll end up messing around, catching cases and all of that. You've been and hurt him so bad, he in the hospital, you catch a case, and then the girl, your best friend, testifying against you. So you do have to be careful, okay? So I get that. I understand." Courtney said, "I done rolled out with friends. Girl, refund my energy." Oh, to be 20 something again. That's why I say I look back and I thank for the grace and mercy, because honey, it could have went a different way. Yeah, I did a when I was in undergrad, I did an article on battered woman syndrome. Like, I did a paper on that, and it's no joke. Like, I'm sure when they saw it, he probably like takes her on the red carpet and loves on her. He gonna cry, "I'm so sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me, I was out my bag," and all of that. And then the person loves them, and then you just take them back. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then it's a pattern where you have the honeymoon period where they all good and they all that, and then they do it again. And you always keep trying, like people that are on drugs, that's always trying to chase that first high. You always trying to chase. You're like, "I know the good in the person." You're always trying to find the good in the person. And that's what a lot of women do. Like, we're nurturers by nature. So we always can see the best in you. And we stay a lot longer than we should. And oftentimes we put ourselves in danger because of it. Sha said, "We're all professional YouTube psychologists. We learned from the streets." That is true. Yep. Love bombing you. I do all of that. So yeah. So I don't want to I'm just saying how my attitude was. I don't know how long that would have. I done been stalked before and everything because of my cutoff is good. So I understand like men that can't believe that you didn't stay and get repeatedly deal with this type of stuff. So this is deep. The following day, Miss Richards received a call demanding that she return to Mr. Combs' residence to continue recording. Mr. Combs brought Miss Richards and Miss Harper into the recording room at his studio, locked the door, dimmed the lights, and gave each of them flowers. What we just talk about? Mr. Combs went on at length stating, quote, "This is normal. This was just a lover's argument where no one was hurt. This is what love is. I'm giving you an opportunity. If you want to make it, you'll shut your mouth. If you say anything, there'll be consequences." Mr. Combs further warned that people end up missing. Didn't I tell y'all? I said, yeah, my family probably would have been reopening my case because I probably would have, if it was true that people come up missing, that probably would have been my story. Because no. They would have. That's why I let my family know everywhere I went, like back in the day, because I knew my mouth wasn't all the way right. But I'm tamed now. Like I'm good. Like I have matured. I don't say everything that comes to my head. I don't react. I'm emotionally intelligent. I didn't have all of that in my 20s. A lot of 20-year-olds don't have that. So yeah. Being threatened while locked for over 20 minutes in a small enclosed space with Mr. Combs after observing Mr. Combs violently assault Miss Ventura the day before, Miss Richard was terrified and genuinely believed that Mr. Combs would follow through on his threats. Yeah, I'd have left. I don't think I would have came the next day. In or around November 2009, after the Soul Train Awards in Atlanta, Mr. Combs flew Miss Richard and Miss Harper to his house in New York on his private jet for an after party. There were many well-known celebrities at the after party, and copious amounts of illegal drugs were being openly consumed. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs had arranged for dozens of young women and girls, some of whom appeared to be underage, to be transported to the party. The women arrived wearing little to no clothing and were given drugs and alcohol. Many of them appeared lethargic and passed out while Mr. Combs and his guests performed sexual acts on them. Miss Richard believed that her presence at the party was a test to see whether Mr. Combs could trust her. Let me tell you what my grade would have been. Diddy, if that was a test, let me tell you what my grade would have been. Let me write down. I'd have got an F. I would have flunked. Because you would have learned that day you can't trust me at all. Because I'm telling it all, honey. That's why I probably would have been, they would have been looking for me. I would have flunked. Y'all put F. I would have flunked. I would not have passed that test. I would not have. B. Crumb said F minus. Mm-hmm. You said LB said I would have got a Z. Whoa. Yeah, because that is, I mean, I think that's a good assumption that she thought that maybe he was trying to test her. Because why would you bring someone into this type of an environment knowing that alleged illegal activity was happening? You don't even know this person. You don't know. She could have been the feds. Like, what if she was an undercover? Do y'all think that there was an undercover that was working on Diddy's team? Wouldn't that be a plot twist that all these years there was somebody on his team? Look, now I'm making Diddy nervous. That it was somebody on his team that was working for the feds the entire time. Sunflower said, I can't believe no one was able to humble this man decades ago. Because allowing all this to, unless you got some dirt on some high-ranking people, I just don't understand how so many people observe this stuff and nobody told, unless this was a part of a greater operation. Just a thought. In or around November 2009, okay, I already read that. Okay, sorry. Let's go to paragraph 61. Mr. Combs repeatedly said things like, "This is a buffet. This is a buffet. Enjoy yourself. This is what we do. This is how we party." Miss Richard felt shocked and horrified at the sight of Mr. Combs and his guests violating incapacitated young women and implored Mr. Combs' personal assistant, Capricorn Clark, to allow her to leave. Miss Clark insisted that Miss Richard wait 15 minutes for Miss Clark to make it make sense. That is, to make Miss Richard's exit less conspicuous so that Mr. Combs would not notice that she had left. Knowing that she was not free to leave and had to wait for Miss Clark to help her orchestrate her departure, Miss Richard experienced feelings of panic and being trapped against her will. So they must gonna do like a false imprisonment. So this would be like what false imprisonment is, like what Christian Gold, Jennifer Williams, soon to be husband, maybe. This is the same thing that he was convicted of and did years. He did 3 years. He got 10 years. He served 30 months. And then he was out on parole and probation. So he's currently on probation. But this is what it was, the same thing, false imprisonment. Mr. Combs regularly placed Mr. Richards in similar situations with no means to escape. At Mr. Combs' drug-fueled parties, his guests, including Miss Richard, were required to surrender their phones upon entry. Mr. Combs kept the doors locked and guarded by security personnel, making it impossible for Miss Richard to leave without alerting Mr. Combs that she had done so. Mr. Combs hired police officers to attend his parties, sending a clear message to guests that his influence extended to law enforcement officers and creating a climate of fear and a tacit warning that reporting him to authorities will be both unacceptable and futile. On many occasions, Mr. Combs had parties at his Miami, Florida residence that lasted for several days. At one of the parties, Miss Richard witnessed Mr. Combs openly stating that he had arranged for busloads of young exotic girls such as mixed Black, Asian, Indonesian, and albino. Once again, Miss Richard observed inebriated young girls being extrally violated by Mr. Combs and his guests. In a state of panic and terror, Miss Richards fled to the bedroom Mr. Combs had insisted she stay in and barricaded the door shut with furniture. Mr. Combs openly assaulted Miss Ventura in front of Miss Richard and other witnesses on multiple occasions. On one occasion, in or around the fall of 2009, Diddy Dirty Money was in New York preparing to perform at a festival. Inside their vehicle, Mr. Combs grabbed Miss Ventura's neck, pulled her out of the van into the grass, and pinned her head down, choking her while yelling, "You gonna get up today." This incident took place in the backstage area just outside the festival and was entirely visible to passersby. In another instance, in or around early 2010, Mr. Combs punched Miss Ventura in the face in the bathroom of a party in LA. Frequently, when Miss Ventura attempted to voice an opinion or stand up to Mr. Combs, he would strike her or wrap his hands around her throat and choke her. On the first several occasions that they observed Mr. Combs assault Miss Ventura, Miss Richard and Miss Harper spoke with Miss Ventura to support and encourage Miss Ventura in escaping her abusive relationship with Mr. Combs. Every time that Miss Richard and Miss Harper tried to intervene, Mr. Combs learned of the conversation and became irate. Mr. Combs screamed at the women, "Y'all itches don't get in my relationship. Don't tell my itch what she need to be doing. Just make money and shut the fuck up. I end artists. I shelve careers. You could be missing. And you itches want to die today?" Among other threats. Yeah. Interscope Records enabled Mr. Combs' gender-motivated violence. In or around 2009, early 2010, Bad Boy Entertainment entered an agreement with Interscope and A&M, herein after Interscope. Upon information and belief, Bad Boy was paid $50 million in exchange for Bad Boy's future releases being distributed through Interscope. In so doing, Mr. Combs intended to capitalize on Interscope's significant resources and enhance the promotion and sales of Bad Boy releases, including Diddy Dirty Money's upcoming album. In the weeks and months leading up to the Bad Boy Interscope deal, Mr. Combs had frequent meetings with producers and then CEO of Interscope Records, Jimmy Levine. On one such occasion, Combs hosted a dinner at a West Hollywood, California restaurant, which Miss Richard and Miss Harper were required to attend. Among the guests at the dinner were celebrities like Neo and Usher. Usher, baby, you don't have to call. It's okay, girl, because I will be all right tonight. As well as Mr. Ivy. At the dinner, Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura. Oh, I didn't do Neo. What song? I am so sick of lust. Is that his song? What's a Neo song? I'm a movement, but I'm a force when we're together. Okay, that's Neo, for those of you who don't know who they are. In front of the dinner guests, Mr. Combs hissed at Miss Ventura in a screaming whisper and forcibly punched her in the stomach, causing her to double over in visible pain, crying. Miss Clark escorted Miss Ventura out of the restaurant, and Mr. Combs remained and continued socializing with the dinner guests. At this point, Interscope Records clearly had actual knowledge that Combs was dangerous around females and that Combs was willing to brazenly batter a female in public. Sheesh. Even after Mr. Iovine watched Mr. Combs commit a violent assault in front of numerous high-profile witnesses, the Bad Boy Interscope deal took place and remains in effect, providing Mr. Combs with immense financial reward and enabling him to commit further acts of violence without fear of repercussion. Watching Mr. Combs openly assault Mr. Ventura in front of Mr. Iovine and various celebrities, and observing that other powerful music industry reps were complicit in Mr. Combs' behavior, amplified Miss Richards' fear that Mr. Combs could one day harm her and that his actions would be accepted and normalized by everyone surrounding him. Usher, Neo, and your two girlfriends, we need you all to come and approach the bench because we want to know, did you guys witness Sean P. Diddy Combs acting like a whole entire fool? Because you just made a witness list, okay? She put you in this pleading, and therefore you are going to be on the witness list. And the question is going to be, on or about sometime in 2009 or early 2010, did you attend a meeting with CEO of Interscope Records, Jimmy Iovine? Yes or no? So then he'll probably respond, I don't recall from 2008 or 9. There were so many times that I was at meetings. Let me see. They're going to be like how the debate was at first, where it was like they asked a question and they talked about something else. Then they have to be like, Mr. Raymond, were you at this meeting where P. Diddy and Cassie were there? Yes or no? Yes. And did you witness any form of yelling, any aggressiveness, any physical violence? And isn't it true that you didn't get up and leave? You didn't intervene. You didn't do anything, did you? You're going to get that witness list. You're going to get on that witness list. So we want to know, do you recall this? Let's go on. Even after Mr. Iovine watched Mr. Combs commit a violent assault in front of numerous high-profile witnesses, the Bad Boy Interscope deal took place and remained in effect, providing him immense financial rewards and enabling him to commit further acts of violence without fear of repercussion. Watching Mr. Combs openly assault Miss Ventura in front of Mr. Iovine and various celebrities and observing that other powerful music industry reps were complicit in his behavior amplified Miss Richards' fear that Mr. Combs could one day harm her and that his actions would be accepted and normalized by everyone surrounding him. So basically, she's setting forth why she did not say anything, because she basically felt like, hey, if he do all of this in front of these big wigs, then who is little old me that they gonna believe what I say? He letting us know he got this on lock. In the music industry, you got police at the party. So if I go to anybody, nothing is going to happen to him. And he's letting us know and putting us in these positions to see the power and the leverage that he has. As part of the agreement between Bad Boy and Interscope heavily promoted Diddy, Dirty Money, Last Train to Paris album. Mr. Iveen had presented Mr. Combs with a demo of Coming Home for him to produce, a song that would become a multi-platinum hit. Mr. Iveen was encouraging Mr. Combs to develop a new sound for the album, into which Interscope was investing significant resources. Mr. Richard, Miss Harper, and Miss Ventura all provided vocal performances for the project. Released in November 2010, the album Last Train to Paris became Diddy Dirty Money's most commercially successful project, providing vast financial rewards to both Interscope and Mr. Combs. Whew. Mr. Combs subjects Miss Richards to labor trafficking and oppressive working conditions in or around the fall of 2009. Diddy Dirty Money began recording the song Love Comes Down. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs continued to use drugs and caused him to remain awake for prolonged periods of time. When he was awake, he would demand that Miss Richard and Miss Harper record in the studio, where they would spend 3 to 4 consecutive days recording without a break to eat or sleep. Mr. Combs required Miss Richard and Miss Harper to remain at the home, continuously denying the opportunity to return to their hotel for breaks. The degree of control Mr. Combs exercised over Miss Richards' daily life and basic needs exacerbated the significant power imbalance and threatening atmosphere that ensured Miss Richards' compliance with his demands. Mr. Combs regularly left the studio and required Miss Richard and Miss Harper to stay and write verses to songs. Occasionally, Miss Richard tried to leave to get something to eat or to go to her hotel. Whenever Miss Richard tried to leave, Mr. Combs would call and demand, "Where the F are you? We have an album to make." Mr. Combs frequently made threats, especially if they asked for food or rest, stating, "You're a itch. I don't want to see you ucking face. I make ninjas go missing. I make things go away." Each time, Miss Richard returned to the studio immediately, believing that Mr. Combs was capable of following through with his threats. Mr. Combs criticized Miss Richard for being too skinny, yet denied her request for food and demanded that she drink only peanut butter shakes. Mr. Combs had full meals prepared by a chef and ate them in front of Miss Richard and Miss Harper, never offered them food. So you just gonna eat in front of me and I'm over here hungry? Is that what you're saying? Miss Richard and Miss Harper begged for food and rest breaks, but Mr. Combs refused, making statements such as "absolutely effing not," and "this is what it takes to be great." Mr. Combs' response underscored the threats he posed and heightened Miss Richard's concern of her safety and well-being. As Miss Richard continued to work nonstop, transitioning between the studio rehearsals, workouts, and back to the studio, she became severely dehydrated and experienced chronic stomach cramping from being undernourished and excessively thin. On the numerous occasions that she told Mr. Combs that she was not feeling well, he called her lazy and dismissed her health concerns, instilling her further apprehension of communicating her needs. Now, Diddy had male groups too. So he had like Day 26. We need somebody from Day 26 to tell us, did he do y'all like that? Or was this something with women? I need to know, some of these men, was this a woman thing? Or was he doing that to y'all? But men may not admit if that happened either way, because it really, because this is crazy. In or around the summer of 2010, Miss Richards experienced abdominal pain, swollen glands, and a fever. She was hospitalized and diagnosed with arthralgia, which is joint pain due to overuse, sprain, tendonitis, and infection, anemia, and a low white blood cell count. Miss Richard presented Mr. Combs with her medical records, specifying that she needed to emphasize eating well, being adequately hydrated, and getting adequate rest. But Mr. Combs ordered her to report to the studio the next day for another multi-day recording session. Mr. Combs' blatant disregard for her health and well-being cemented Mr. Richards' fear of his authority and control over her career and health. What? Okay, this is making me mad. How long is this? Good gosh almighty. Oh, it's gonna take okay. I can't. Miss Richards continued to witness Mr. Combs' abuse towards Miss Ventura. Miss Ventura often wore sunglasses and makeup in an attempt to hide visible injuries. These incidents further solidified Miss Richards' fear of Mr. Combs, as they were constant reminders of the physical danger she potentially could and eventually would face. Miss Combs often exhibited uncontrollable anger during recording sessions, throwing objects like albums, laptops, and food against the wall or at individuals. Mr. Combs frequently flew into frenzied, unpredictable rages. Miss Richard feared making any missteps that could direct her anger toward him. However, her fears went beyond her immediate physical safety because she had witnessed Mr. Combs' violent nature, a side of Mr. Combs that the world had not yet seen. She feared that falling out of Mr. Combs' good graces, or worse, standing up to him or speaking out against him, could result in serious harm to her. Miss Richard frequently thought about Mr. Combs' threats about making people go missing and feared taking any action that could label her as a target. Despite Mr. Combs' violence, threats, and misogyny, Diddy Dirty Money experienced significant sales of records, selling 2 million copies of one single, 500,000 of another in US and Australia, 5 million single copies. Miss Richards' unpaid wages and royalties are estimated at 1.2. Miss Richards' unpaid touring wages are estimated at 350 for touring. So you was doing all this and wasn't even getting paid? This just ain't clicking for me. I'm just So you were doing this in hopes of eventually getting paid for like years? Because again, when you look at the Facebook video, you were I will go back to the Facebook video for those that just got here. So Rock Diddy beats a non-payment. In or around the summer of '09, Miss Richard and Miss Harper were required by Mr. Combs to perform as part of Diddy Dirty Money and attend numerous promotional events, including later overnight parties, all of which were under contract between Mr. Combs and Ciroc Vodka, or between Mr. Combs and Diddy Beats pursuant to Bad Boys Interscope record deal. Miss Richard was never compensated for the extra time she spent fulfilling Mr. Combs' promotional contracts, including the Ciroc and the Diddy Beats campaign. Mr. Combs was paid approximately $250K per Ciroc appearance. Mr. Combs did not compensate Miss Richard or Miss Harper for their appearances, other than just $5K each on a handful of occasions. Mr. Combs' ongoing explanation for withholding compensation was that their appearance was a requirement for their tour. Additionally, Miss Richard was required to appear and promote Diddy Beats through parties, albums, songs, and videos. Over time, Mr. Combs was paid $6.25 million for 25 Ciroc shows, and Miss Richard was required to attend. Following each show, Miss Richard and Miss Harper approached Mr. Combs to inquire about their insufficient and sporadic payments. Mr. Combs routinely responded with statements such as, quote, "You itches aren't grateful," end quote, "and you don't want this." I'd be like, "I want it. Try me." See, Miss Richard estimates losses from Ciroc campaign promotion totaling at least 1.5. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs received an advance on Diddy Beats, for which Miss Richard received no compensation. Now she's claiming actually harassed and assaults her. Between 2009 and 11, throughout Diddy Dirty Money's recording process, rehearsals, and performances, Mr. Combs repeatedly ordered Miss Richard to strip down to her underwear. He frequently referred to her as an itch or a whore and made demeaning remarks about her body, alternatingly calling her lazy, fat, ugly, and skinny, particularly in front of his friends, producers, and bodyguards. Mr. Combs frequently held meetings with Miss Richard wearing only his underwear, despite Miss Richard protests and repeated requests for him to put on clothing. In response, Mr. Combs called her an itch and a whore, and reminded her that she should be grateful for the opportunity to be here. Often while they were recording in the studio, Mr. Combs would hold parties where he would invite young men and women who were often scantily dressed and appeared underage to use drugs and engage in X acts. Miss Richard observed Mr. Combs and his colleagues kissing, groping, and inappropriately touching the young women. Upon information and belief, the participants often left the immediate area to have X and returned shortly thereafter. On numerous occasions, between approximately '09 and 11, under the guise of preparing for performances, Mr. Combs would intrude into Miss Richards' changing room at Daddy's house unannounced while Miss Richard was undressed. Even though a female stylist was present and assisting Miss Richard with her wardrobe, Mr. Combs would grope Miss Richards' body, including her bare buttocks and her chest area near her breast. With no legitimate purpose and without Miss Richards' consent, Mr. Combs caressed her buttocks to show the stylist where he wanted her high-waisted panties positioned and attempted to touch her breasts, claiming to show the stylist where he wanted her bra straps to go. When Mr. Combs would enter the changing room, Miss Richard would cover her chest with her hands to prevent Mr. Combs from seeing her touching her breast. Mr. Combs would touch her body. Miss Richard would attempt to swat his hand away and state, "Don't touch me." Mr. Combs frequently smacked Miss Richards' bare buttocks and often commented on her body, noting that although she was too skinny, she had an ass. Ignoring her visible and communicated discomfort, Mr. Combs persisted and continued to intrude when Mr. Richards was in the dressing room, continued to touch her buttocks and breast area under the guise of showing the stylist what to do, and continued to smack her buttocks without her consent. In or around October 2010, Diddy Dirty Money performed in Glasgow, Scotland, where Mr. Combs engaged in overt sexual advances towards Miss Richard. On numerous occasions, when Miss Richard exited the dressing room fully styled, Mr. Combs looked at her approvingly and smacked her buttocks while making comments such as, "You looking good. Okay, Don. Okay. Okay." And I see what that is. In a flirtatious tone, each time Miss Richard moved away and asked him not to touch her. But Mr. Combs disregarded her protest. On their last night in Glasgow, Miss Richard witnessed Mr. Combs and several other male gangbangers. Mr. Combs' female assistant at the hotel pool. Miss Richard immediately left and went to the hotel room. On their flight back to the United States the next day, Miss Richards asked Mr. Combs where his assistant was. Mr. Combs replied, "I don't give a uck where that itch is." Miss Richard later learned that Mr. Combs had taken his assistant's passport with him to the United States, leaving the assistant stranded in the UK. In Glasgow, Miss Harper confided in Miss Richards that her husband and manager, Tony Vick, was abusive. After an especially severe assault, she confided in Miss Richard that she wanted to leave Mr. Vick, and Miss Richard helped her to plan her exit from the relationship. However, Miss Harper and Mr. Vick reconciled, and both Mr. Combs and Mr. Vick, who had a close relationship, learned of Miss Richards' role in helping Miss Harper. Both Mr. Combs and Mr. Vick became noticeably distrustful of Miss Richards, which exacerbated her fears of harm and reprisal. When Mr. Combs would require his Diddy Dirty Money bandmates to stay at his residence in Miami, Miss Richard would barricade herself inside her room at night, placing heavy furniture against the door because she feared being harmed in her sleep. In or around late December 2010, Miss Richard, Miss Harper, and Miss Ventura were in Mr. Combs' Los Angeles home when Mr. Combs stated, quote, "I want to gift you fake titties for Christmas." Mr. Combs reached out and cupped Miss Richards' breast without her permission and stated, "You're an A. I'm thinking a D." Miss Richard recoiled in shock and left the room. Throughout the above-mentioned time period, when Miss Richard resisted Mr. Combs' advances, Mr. Combs retaliated by denying her singing parts in songs, removing her from songs, refusing to allow her to sing in performances, and turning her microphone off during performances. The more Miss Richards rebuffed his advances, the more Mr. Combs' retaliatory behavior increased. I'm not seeing what she got out of being in this situation with him. Because if he not paying you, like what are you getting? Yeah, we can see you. Dimples Wimples. You thought we blocked you over here, sis? We ain't block you. Elite Leo said, I remember her fiance Q breaking. I remember Q. He was on day 26, breaking up with her because of it. He was accusing her of sleeping with Diddy. I guess. Oh, I forgot about that. I guess he blamed her for what Diddy was making her do or for her not leaving the situation. Q, we need you to approach the bench too. I forgot all about that. Yeah, you right. You right. I still see the chat. Oh, it was giving an error message. Oh, okay. Gigi said, I don't think he gave her what she earned, but she did get full makeover surgery. That's because he wanted her to look a certain way, apparently. Yeah, I remember she was dating Q. I couldn't think. I knew she dated somebody on that show, but I couldn't remember who it was. They was kind of cute together, I thought. Yeah, hit the like button. I don't know. We talking about Diddy. They might not be happy. Mr. Combs assaults and falsely imprisons Miss Richard. In or around December 2010, Diddy Dirty Money was preparing for an upcoming performance on Saturday Night Live. As usual, rehearsals lasted for days without opportunity to eat or rest, and the rehearsal schedule was unpredictable. After waiting all day for Mr. Combs to call or send a car, Miss Richard, I don't know why I keep saying Mr. Going between Mr. Combs and Miss Richard received a phone call from Mr. Combs demanding, where the uck are you itches? Baby, the way I would have been like, damn, that's what they would have heard. Damn, they would have heard that dial tone. That's what they would have heard. Mm-mm. I can't. Jesus help me. I'm trying to see something. Let me finish this. You itches don't want this. Y'all don't deserve to have someone pick you up. Get a cab. Miss Richard and Miss Harper immediately took a taxi to SIR Studios at 5. They got the address. Anxious because Mr. Combs sounded enraged. Upon their arrival at the studio, Mr. Combs and Harve Pierre was waiting for them in the lobby. Mr. Combs screamed obscenities at them. Where the F were you itches? You itches don't want to win. You don't want this. I'm so tired of y'all. Miss Richards noticed that people in the library were reacting to Mr. Combs' tirade. Embarrassed, Miss Richard asked Mr. Combs to stop swearing and calling them itches in front of everyone. Mr. Combs' facial expression. Ooh, sorry. Mr. Combs' facial expression shifted as he stepped towards Miss Richard, raised his arms, swing his fist toward his face. Believing that Mr. Combs was going to hit her, Miss Richard braced for the impact. Before Mr. Combs could strike her, Mr. Combs' bodyguard grabbed her, escorted her out of the studio, and forced her into the Bad Boy Records Bentley that was parked outside. Miss Harper ran after Miss Richard, and Mr. Combs' bodyguard closed and locked the Bentley door with both women inside. Inside the vehicle, Miss Richard realized there was no interior door handles, and they were locked inside with no way to escape. Miss Richards' belongings were in the studio, but she was able to call her father from Miss Harper's cell phone. Miss Richards relayed to her father what had happened and that she needed help and feared that she would go missing. Moments later, Mr. Combs' bodyguard removed only Miss Harper from the Bentley, leaving Miss Richard locked in the car alone for over 2 hours. Miss Richards screamed as loudly as she could, but no one responded. It was late evening in the wintertime. The windows were heavily tinted, and the interior of the car was dark except for faint interior lights. Miss Richards' belongings and winter coat were in the studio while the ignition was off and there was no heat. With Mr. Combs' prior threats and violence running through her mind, Miss Richards felt sheer panic, terror, and feelings of claustrophobia at being locked in a small, dark, enclosed space with no way to communicate or call for help. She began to feel cold and fear for her life, not knowing when or if she could be released. Miss Richards' father drove to New York from Baltimore and arrived at the studio approximately 2 hours later. Here come Daddy. This is what I'm talking about. Cause Only after her father arrived and demanded to see her did Mr. Pierre order Mr. Combs' bodyguard to release Miss Richard from the vehicle. Mr. Pierre ushered Miss Richard's father between several rooms at SIR Studios, where he waited for approximately 2 hours before being able to confront Mr. Combs. Once Miss Richard's father expressed that he intended to contact police, Mr. Combs warned him to, quote, think about your family and think about your daughter's career. Her father appeared visibly frightened by Mr. Combs' threats and actions, which in turn made Miss Richards feel terrified for herself and her family's safety. The next day, Diddy Dirty Money performed on SNL. Mr. Combs subsequently called Miss Richards, complimented her performance, and concluded with the threat, you don't call your dad unless you're in the hospital. What? Sorry, I had to take a little breather. So, your daddy came. He threatened your daddy and your family, and your daddy was. Let me tell you about my daddy. My daddy, this is how this would have been when we left. This how it have been with my daddy. This would have been my daddy calling me right here. Please hold. Hello, this is a prepaid call from Nesto. That's how it would have been. An inmate at the Cobb County Adult Detention Facility. To accept this call, press 0. Your current balance is 20. Baby. That did I, y'all hit this like button on the way in. I think this is the last paragraph of the facts. Unjust enrichment of defendants by breach of contract and or copyright infringement. As a member of Danity Kane, Miss Richard was performed on over 15 songs and holds composition credits for more than 3 songs. Defendants have failed to account or to pay Ms. Richard as agreed for her compositions and performances and have breached contracts and infringed her copyright, all of which was unjustly enriched defendants. As a member of Diddy Dirty Money, Ms. Richards has performed recorded on over 9 songs. Additionally, Ms. Richard has composition rights and credits on more than 5 songs. Defendants have failed to account or to pay Ms. Richard as agreed for her compositions. So then they have a list in the footnote of all of her stuff. She got that showstopper. So they got all the stuff that she's done in here in the footnote. Defendants have failed to account or to pay Ms. Richard as agreed for her compositions and her performances and breach contracts and or infringe her copyright, unjustly enriching defendants. In 2020, Mr. Combs selected Miss Richard for a reboot of Making a Band. Yeah, we just said that's what we was talking. Look, that's what we was talking about at the beginning when she was saying that she was about to be on. Let's see. See, they got all the info up in here. Let me see. This is what we was talking about over here.
Hey everybody, it's Dawn here, and I'm excited to announce that I just got off the phone with Puff, and he has asked me to help him find some singers. So yes, I am going to be a part of making the band. I'm going to be in Houston, Texas, Saturday at the Wharton Theater at 9 a.m. It starts at 9 a.m., but you guys got to get there earlier. I'm super, super excited to be a part of this. You know, I got my start on making the band, and I've been able to build a brand from this, and I'm super excited to represent for the indie kids, to be able to be a part of this and help you guys manifest your dreams, your vision, and what success means to you. This is important, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. Um, hey, Puff, let's do this for another time, right? Let's do it, Making the Band 2020. Rock with me.
No,
Hello, welcome in.
no, that just that all of this, he couldn't have called me. He couldn't have called me. This was in 2020, of which this whole Making the Band thing was supposed to happen. Let's do this. Diddy should be scared of people trying to set him up if he was doing all of this. After all these years, some people may have got some strength and power like Cassie did. I would be concerned that in 2020, Mr. Combs selected Miss Richard for a reboot of Making the Band, and Miss Richard spent hours preparing to be a judge on the new show. However, the COVID-19 pandemic halted those plans, and Miss Richard was never compensated in any way. On or about July 1st, 2021, Mr. Combs and Bad Boy Records, or Holdings, or both, directed Janice Combs Publishing to assign its administration rights of Miss Richards' songs. Held from her tenure with defendants in the years of 2005 to 2012 to Sony Songs, a diversion of Sony Music Publishing. The assignment assigned by Miss Richard on October 22nd, 2024. So this, the assignment signed by Miss Richard on October 22nd, 2024, purported to credit through a semi-annual accounting Miss Richards' royalty account for Miss Richards' compensation for between 80 to 90% of publisher share. However, no statements were ever provided, no payments were ever made, and no reversions nor assignments were ever recorded with performing rights organizations or other royalty collection entities by defendants by Sony. Defendants have wholly failed to account or to pay Miss Richard as agreed for her composition and her performances in breach of the assignment, and have thereby infringed her copyright, resulting in defendants being unjustly enriched. So she's been able to get all of her publishing back, it looks like. However, let's see. Directed Janice Combs Publishing to assign its administration rights of Miss Richards' songs held from her tenure. Let me see this footnote. Okay. During the summer of 2023, Mr. Combs' new record company, Love Records, tendered a contract for negotiation to Miss Richard for the song entitled Deliver Me, embodied as track 3 on the Love album. So she was still working with him. Upon information and belief, Deliver Me sold well prior to Mr. Combs' legal troubles in November of 2023. Continuing to the present, Miss Richards sought to establish her rightful percentage as a 21% composer on Deliver Me. Mr. Combs personally called Miss Richard and left a voicemail complaining about her fair request. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs directed his attorneys to avoid confirming the composition percentage on the song, and in fact, list composers who played no part in composing the song. As a result, the contract was never signed by either Miss Richards or Love Records, Inc. Nevertheless, Miss Richards obtained a copyright registration certificate on a timely basis, and registration lists authors, claimants as agreed when the song was created in 2009. That registration is filed separately in the court and supports Miss Richards' claim of copyright infringement by defendants Love Records, Inc. and Mr. Combs infringed Miss Richards' copyright in the composition of Deliver Me by releasing Deliver Me without Miss Richards' permission and without compensation. So then we finally get to the actual damages. Those that we just read is all the facts. I would have hung up on him. You called me to do a song with you after you haven't paid me allegedly from all of the stuff that I have done before, like millions of dollars, not $20, not $200, not $2,000. She is alleging millions of dollars that have not been paid. I was allegedly abused. I was allegedly subjected to sexual harassment up in them studios. We got celebrities allegedly watching, which is further diminishing that people watch this alleged behavior. And then you say, hey Dawn, what up, it's your boy Love, and I'm doing a love album because I'm all about love. No, he got all about love because he knew that some of these people were going to start talking, so he was trying his best to try. That's the old me. That's what he said with Cassie when that video came out. Diddy said that was the old me. I was in a dark place. So now you in this love place. Hey, what up, though? I'm trying to do this album. Do you think you can write it? Sure, Puff. I'll do a song. I'd be like, Puff, where my money at, though? You want me to send you a text message on how much you owe me? Yeah, I'll pull up. Yeah, and that would have been the end of our conversation. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm sorry. So let's go over the damages real quick. Let me hold on. I gotta for this client right fast. Give me 1 second. 1 second. All right, we're gonna go over the cause of the action right quick before we get out of here. So the damages are the first cause of action is violation of the Victim of Gender Motivated Violence Act. We went over that before, and that's against Sean Combs, Harve, Pierre, Interscope, and Bad Boy Records. You have to specifically say what each cause of action pertains to, or who it pertains to, or you risk getting your case dismissed if you're not specific on whose each claim belongs to. So that's why it has the specific names under there. The second cause of action is sexual assault pursuant to the California Sexual Abuse and Cover-Up Accountability Act. So that is the second cause of action. The third cause of action is forced labor in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1589. That's the third cause of action. The fourth cause of action is violation of New York Services for Victims Human Trafficking, New York Service Law against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. The fifth cause of action is trafficking. That is against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. So that's not against everyone else. Sixth cause of action is violation of the California Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which is against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boys. The seventh cause of action, I did say the sixth, right? Yeah. The seventh cause of action is assault, and that's against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. The eighth is battery and sexual assault under New York law against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. The ninth is false imprisonment against defendant Sean Combs and Harve Pierre and Bad Boy Records. The 10th cause of action is false imprisonment against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. And the 11th is intentional infliction of emotional distress. That's against defendant Sean Combs, Harve Pierre, and Bad Boy Records. 12th cause of action is sexual harassment, gender discrimination, and hostile work environment under New York State human rights law. That's against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. 13th cause of action is the same, sexual harassment against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. 14th is retaliation in violation of New York State human rights law. That's against Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. The 15th cause of action is a hostile work environment against Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. The 16th cause of action is gender discrimination against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. The 17th cause of action is violation of rights of publicity under the New York Civil Rights against defendant Sean Combs, Bad Boy Records, Universal Music Group, Interscope, Diageo American Supply Company, DBA Ciroc Distilling Company, aka Ciroc Canning Company, and Combs Wines and Spirits LLC. The 18th cause of action is copyright infringement against defendant Sean Combs, Bad Boy, and Love Records. Then we got the 19th cause of action is the breach of contract against defendant Sean Combs, Bad Boy Records, the Sean Combs Music Inc., the Nordlinger Group LLC, November 15th, LLC, Janice Combs Publishing Inc., and Sony Songs. The 20th cause of action, breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. That's against all defendants. That's everybody named in that caption. 21st cause of action is fraud, intentional misrepresentation, and false promises against all defendants. And then the prayer for relief. So there are 21 causes of action. The attorney that drafted it spent a whole lot of time on this complaint. It is very detailed. It tells the story, and they have a lot of counts. The prayer for relief, this is what she's asking for. Wherefore, Ms. Richard prays that this court enter judgment against defendants herein and any other defendants who may later be added to this action as follows. For a money judgment representing compensatory damages, including but not limited to consequential damages, lost wages, earnings, royalties, publishing, touring, promotional income, and non-economic damages, and all other sums of money, together with interest on these amounts according to proof. For a money judgment for mental pain and anguish and severe emotional distress, according to proof. For restitution for disgorgement of all sums unjustly obtained from plaintiff or insured to benefit of defendants or inured to benefits of defendants. For civil penalties for punitive and exemplary damages according to proof. Attorney fees, prejudgment and post-judgment interest, and for each another for the relief that they may deem just and proper. This was filed on yesterday. The jury demand, Ms. Richards demands a trial by jury on all issues triable. And we got the Bloom Law Firm. So she said, you get a lawsuit, you get a lawsuit, you get a lawsuit, you're getting served, you're getting served, you're getting served. Everybody's getting served. So next few weeks, everybody needs to just be watching their doorbells through the Ring Can, because that process server is coming. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. I hope you guys appreciated the content. I always say don't enjoy it because this is not enjoyable with the allegations that are being alleged. We thank you for supporting, and I would ask that you would please follow me on Instagram and TikTok at pam.esq. If you have not done so already, please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you to every one of you guys in this chat for your participation, for the super chats that we have received. And I thank you guys so much. I really, really do. I love you guys. I love you guys. You guys have a great day. All right. Hopefully you guys understand what Dawn Richards is alleging in her complaint. We went over every single fact. We don't have enough time to go over all of the, different pages, but we did go over a lot of those counts, and those counts we have discussed over here on other occasions. So you guys pretty much know, if you follow me, what those counts entail. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all of the love, but I have to get out of here now. We've been here for a little minute. Make sure, again, you hit that like button on the way out, and I'm out of here. Have a great day.